Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only James Camp. How are you doing today, sir?
Good, man. I'm excited to be here, excited for 2026. Like I was saying before, excited to not be sick. We're pumped. I'm going super viral in Pokemon Twitter, which is
Yeah,
the least important thing to me in the world, but dopamine's always fun. So yeah, I'm good, dude.
yeah, awesome. So, James, I was going through your Twitter past couple of weeks, and I think it was on your caption on your bio where you said you've sold to businesses and failed
Yeah.
1,000 times. And in particular, when I started diving into your letter, nano flips, and seeing what you do, from my understanding, it's more so that you buy and sell online businesses.
Sh-
Yeah. So, how did you get into that space?
Purely by accident.
Hmm.
And like the question right now, I'm mostly doing advisory on like buy side advisory and
Hmm.
like sort of looking for, am I going to go build something from scratch again? Because one of the things I sold, I built from scratch. The other thing I sold is something I bought. And then I've sold like a bunch of like small blogs and stuff, like 10, $20,000 things, but like actual meaningful exits. Like I sold a business to Open Store. I was the first acquisition. That was a business I bought. And then I sold a business to a public company. And I built that from scratch. And bought some other stuff along the way in that. But how to get into that? Like,
Hmm.
who knows? I mean, that's the irony of my life. You know, it's like I've just wrote this whole thing about how I've just like thrown spaghetti at the wall, and I've just like a generalist who has like horrific ADD, and that I really believe like in this. I think I'm going to call my new newsletter "Modern Renaissance." But
Uh-huh.
like we are looking at the rise of the generalist and polymath in a way that couldn't be existed before, right? And because you know I was always like beat up for having ADD. I mean, like my beat up by like society, my parents, school, like, oh, you should focus, And ironically, now being interested in a ton of things,
Hmm.
like when you can just execute on them immediately with AI and in this future world, I think will be rewarded for. So I got into it because I sold a business, candidly,
Yeah.
and I went through that process. I learned a lot through that. And then I bought a business and that sort of sent me down that rabbit hole. And I wrote about it on the internet and people
Hmm.
started following me for it. And then people were like, why don't you tell people how to do this? So it sort of was all by accident, I guess.
And how many years did it honestly take you? Because I feel like for myself, I'm in this journey of making money online. And like 2019, I had this drop shipping store that for the first year and a half, I was just eating shit. Like
Hell
couldn't
yeah.
figure anything out for the life of me. I was trying to sell Bad Bunny sunglasses and dad hats, and I couldn't make one sale until I think about like 2 years in. I finally found the right product with bucket hats. I figured out how to use ads, and I made it wasn't anything crazy. It was like 600 sales in Australia, and it was like 15,000. But that was kind of like my start. And through that, I've been like trying and failing, trying and failing. In your own journey, how long did it take you to finally like, figure something out and get going?
So candidly, I'm 37. I
Mhm.
hate to admit it, but I am 37. And I just like always was very curious and very money motivated. I think it's because I didn't grow up with money and I grew up around people that had money. So I
Mhm.
started blogging when I was like 15. And like the first thing I had go viral, I was like 16 and I made 35 bucks that day.
Hell yeah.
And I was like, whoa. I mean, dude,
Yeah.
this is also for context. I was 16 with inflation. This is 20 years ago now.
Right.
Right. So probably like 60 bucks from like 70 bucks in today's dollars. And I was like, holy shit. You know, I mean, it was just like the coolest thing ever.
Mhm.
So I had some early wins in that regard where I saw that could work. And I built this little ad network that I sold for a very small amount of money when I was like 19. It wasn't big, but it felt like a win. And I blew it all in nightclubs and I became a nightclub promoter for 7 years. And I worked for Tao Group and Butter Group. And I just like literally stood on a banquette chugging a bottle of whiskey and texting girls for a living for like 7 years of my life. It was like really, at 21, I would have signed a contract in blood. By 27, I was like, this is the worst job I've ever had. How do I get out of this? And I sort of went back to internet marketing and built this financial media business we sold. Point is to say that I really believe I was writing, like I said, writing about this morning. It took me like 10 or 15 years to find like my sweet spot into being able to be a generalist and be able to use pattern recognition to know where to throw the spaghetti. You're always throwing spaghetti against the wall, right?
Yeah.
When you build something, like you said, you tested lots of products, right? Like that's always going to happen. But
Mhm.
you probably have a way better idea of what wall to throw spaghetti at now, right?
For sure.
And so in the very beginning, you have to just get data. You just have to try tons of things and fail like a ton. And you have to recognize that that data, that failure is just data sets coming back to you to tell you how to be better at pattern recognition for what is going to work in the future. So I feel like I'm just hitting a real stride at 37 of like, I'm going to build something really cool. And I actually see like this chapter of life as the summer of life, like 37 to 60 is like, oh, like I'm actually plugged into people. I actually have enough wind under my belt that people respect me. I actually know what works and I actually have some money now. And so I hate to say it, but like 15 years to get it. But I think that gets compressed in AI future is where I
Yeah.
was going. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, I mean, I think I heard a stat that Warren Buffett made like 97% of his wealth
Yeah.
after the age of 60. So, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Well,
just
hopefully, for my sake, please let it be before 60. You know
yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
I
But
agree.
yeah, it's compounding. I mean, it's so silly. All these things are just tropes, right? We learn all these things. We don't, they go in one ear and out the other when we're kids. And we get older, like, oh, what? Like, it really is compounding interest, right? And you have to recognize that like knowledge and your effort, it's very easy to see in math on a spreadsheet what compounding interest does, but that also happens with your effort in life, right? Like
For
your
sure.
network is compounding, right? And some of those people that were like just taking swings with you when you were 20 are now also 40 and have raised $200 million, right? And so your
Yeah.
network becomes that much more powerful and the doors open up much more easily.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like I had similar mentality when I was maybe 15. I was like, "Oh, bro, for sure I'm going to be a millionaire by 20 or whatever." Right? And then it's like, "All right, now I'm 30, I'm not there." I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm just understanding part of the process."
Yeah,
So to your point, James, like you said, you created a blog at age 15. You sold an ad network at age 19. And then you also hit up on something that's important that you talked about getting data sets to validate like whatever business you're working on for yourself.
sure.
You know, your bread and butter right now is buying and selling businesses. How and like what data do you look at to validate the business that you're buying is legitimate? Because for myself, I look at it as if I'm like downloading pirated music on LimeWire to figure out how to buy a business here. So just kind of walk
Sure.
me through that.
So I think that it's just so a part of that data pattern recognition is like you have to lose too, right? You
Hmm.
have to recognize what is likely to not work,
Right.
right? And this is where that irony comes in, right? Like you're praying, your hope is that you learn pattern recognition through winning. Well, you do in some regard, but it's pretty invaluable or non-valuable, not invaluable, non-valuable data if you don't know what doesn't work too, right?
Right.
So you also need to know what doesn't work. So I have just tried enough things to recognize things that do not work, to understand like CAC to LTV ratios that are important. And then I've made enough things work. And I don't mean work in massive ways, right? Like
Yeah.
the two big wins I had, I sold a financial media business in 2020 for like low mid eight figures with a partner, and I owned less than 30% of it. By the time it was mostly stock, whatever. And then
Hmm.
I bought a hearing aid brand and sold that a year later. That was a company doing a few $1 million a year. So like, I don't want to pretend I'm not like my data recognition, my pattern recognition hasn't come from like $1 billion transactions, right? But what I mean to say with that is that like in those process, I probably had 1,000 things. When I say 1,000 failures in my bio, some of them were absolute zeros where I lost 10,000 bucks of my money. Some of them were things that made me like 800 bucks and I realized just the juice was not worth the squeeze. So I've now learned where the better monetization opportunities are. That's really my thesis on buying things, right? Is like there is meat left on the bone that has not been optimized yet,
Right.
right? I'm not a true large private equity guy. I don't think about redomiciling businesses for tax purposes, right? Like, I mean, one day that'd be cool. That's just not my space. But when it comes to internet marketing, I'm a strategist at my core. And so I can look at an internet based business and tell you this is under monetized. These email flows are missing, right? This
Hmm.
creative is bad. The retention models attached to this are bad.
Hmm.
And I can say, oh, no. The LTV on this is not big enough for us to go run paid, right? So it's just the pattern recognition. And the only way I know that is because I've tried and I've lost my money trying before. So the failure part, the irony, and this is one of those tropes that has only clicked for me at 37,
Hmm.
is that like the failures are just as important as the wins if you want to like be able to take giant swings to make much bigger wins. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. And I think for myself too, something that also registered recently was just having a real understanding of like I guess the reps and the volume I needed to do to actually get some results. And I could give you one example for myself with this whole personal brand thing. for the past 2 years, I've been doing this personal finance boot camp, and I was trying to do this 2 years prior, couldn't figure anything out to actually make sales. And it was just one kind of component of going on TikTok live, and I was getting a ton of quality leads. And it's kind of also putting myself in the perspective that things are always evolving and changing. So what worked with me in 2019 with Instagram ads didn't work for me last year, but it's always just trying to figure out what is currently working. So
Well, you touched on something that's like a huge lesson of my life recently
yeah.
that like is super important, and I want anyone should know this. Everyone should know this. Is that you have this? There's a fallacy when you're building businesses, and probably in all of life in general. But I've only had a real job for like a year my whole life, so it's very tough for me to think about like under any other context. Is that you think that you once you figure something out, you then just juice it, right? You're just like, oh, this works. That's how you think
Right.
scaling works. Right? Like, oh, once I find this ad that works, I will just instead of spending $20 a day on it, I'll spend $1,000 a day or $10,000 a day. Right? Performers are fucking bullshit. Excuse my language. Right? But like projections are worthless. They are. I mean, not worthless. You have to build them, but like it's not. It's not true. Right? And
Right.
so you think, okay, well, I build this process, and I hire someone to run that. Then I build this process, hire someone to run that. And specifically, I'm a marketer, right? So you can relate to this, right? Like it's ads are the easiest one to think of. When I make this ad that has a 3x ROAS, then I can just put more spend behind this and I'll keep getting 3x ROAS. Well, eventually that creative dies. And so the
Mm-hmm.
big lesson I've learned here, there's a great quote, actually a Tom Hanks quote, but it's this too shall pass, right? And
Mm-hmm.
what I mean by that is this is bad, it'll pass. This is good, it'll pass.
Yes.
But what that means, so I've recognized I have been on Twitter since like 12 years, but really tweeting, trying since I sold my business in 2020. So 6 years now. I can't believe I'm saying this. Between 2020 and 2022, before Elon bought it,
Mm-hmm.
I managed to get to like 50,000 followers and like 30,000 email subscribers because I understood how to go viral. I understood what hit. And I was writing about one thing specifically,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 20. Well, I forget when Elon bought it. My point is, for the past few years, the algorithm has been horrific. I
Mm-hmm.
still stuck it out. I was gaining like 300 followers a month. They finally just changed the algo again a couple months ago, a little bit, and a big amount 2 weeks ago. I've done probably 3,000 followers in the past 7 days on Twitter. That's more than I've done in many, many years. My point to say is I've figured out how to make it working. It's a little more TikTokified. It's a little more FYP. Like you either go mega viral or you don't. But my point is to say that what I've recognized is this too shall pass. This algorithm will change again. So my lesson here for me has been like, get while the getting is good, right?
Right.
Because it will get bad again. I will lose my ability to just go viral on command. So I might as well hammer it, spend 3 hours writing pieces this morning, and get everything I can out of it while I can. So while you can hammer that ad set that works, do it because that creative will change. The algorithm will change. The
Yeah.
edge will change. And the AI world, the edge changes faster than it ever has before. You used to
Mm-hmm.
have this knowledge arbitrage for a lifetime. You would get an engineering degree. The World Economic Forum estimates that the half-life of degrees is like 5 years now. That within 5 years, you'll basically have to relearn all skills inside something. Holy shit. And that's not even our corner of the internet where things are moving at the speed of light. I'm
Yeah.
saying every 6 months you better be fresh on what's working. So anyway, I digress. I could just get pretty hyped about this. It's something I think about a
No,
lot.
I mean, dude, that what you just said was just so spot on about like the thing that worked doesn't last in perpetuity. If in 2019 I made $400 off my drop shipping store with that ad, like that same ad set, I remember myself thinking, holy shit, like this is it. I made it forever. I could always make this amount of money doing this same thing.
Well,
And
you have to, the moment
yeah.
the moment you realize that though, it's like, I remember I went to 5 high schools. I got kicked out of school a lot.
Holy shit, five high
Yeah.
schools is crazy.
Dude, 5 high schools, and I dropped out of college second semester senior year with 8 credits left to this day. I never finished. And I'll never forget one of the principals that kicked me out of school. There was this girl, Lydia, who had cut chemistry class with me. And I said, how come Lydia isn't getting expelled? And she was like, you know what, James? Life is unfair. And the moment you accept that, the easier it becomes. And that stuck with me forever. Life is unfair.
Yeah.
And it's true. You don't, complaining about how unfair it is doesn't help anyone, doesn't help you at all.
Right.
So the next lesson to tie that in what we're just saying is that like the moment you recognize that your edge will disappear, that whatever's working today will not work tomorrow, instead of crying and moaning about that, being mad about it, the sooner you accept that as a reality, the sooner you learn that you should go in deep and hit that as hard as you can while you have that opportunity and be prepared to pivot and pattern recognize into what the next opportunity looks like.
Got it. And then, so right now in 2026, with that being said, right, like, is there a specific vertical in online businesses that it's more so like, oh, this is the one that we should allocate more time, whether it's like a newsletter or a SaaS business, or do they all work in their own ways?
I mean, candidly, they do all work in their own ways, and I think that's like one
Hmm.
of the important things for people to recognize. Like, you know, I think the only thing that's truly dying in front of my face is like something I dedicate a lot of my life to, and which made me frozen for a while, but which is like basically media through organic search. I do
Okay.
not think that like long form blog content lives on organic search through Google much anymore,
Okay.
right? Like I own a soccer blog with a partner, and like we used to get so much traffic for like what are the dimensions of a soccer field.
Hmm.
Well, why would Google give me that traffic, right? AI can absolutely answer that, right?
Right.
An AI overview has answered that. So with that said, media is not dead. Media's
Hmm.
you see it on Twitter every day. You see it on TikTok every day. Media is bigger than ever. It's just that it's been decentralized into people as opposed to these sort of giant hubs. Now, if you had to make a bet, I mean, it's the obvious ones, right? It is like there's a secular trend that is AI, clearly,
Hmm.
right? I think that there are many, many, many businesses that don't know how to implement AI. I
Hmm.
think that a lot of people are thinking about like reduction of headcount when I don't think that's the future. I think it's more about enabling of headcount, right? So you'll have less headcount because as you grow, you won't hire more. You know, org charts get wider and less vertical because each person can do the job of the people below them very easily.
Okay.
But yeah, agents. I mean, it sounds so silly, but like, you know, I think about how do we make bets on workflows, agentic workflows that we then implement for flat rates, and then we update them every now and then. It's not the traditional SaaS model, but it is like we'll implement these agents in your business, and they're going to need updating every now and then, right? They're going to need structure, IT management type stuff, right? So for 50 grand, I'll come in and I'll implement an agent in your business that will allow you to not hire 4 people next year as you grow. And then we'll come back every quarter for $5,000 a quarter and update them and make sure that they're working perfectly within your workflows. And it's a similar model, but I think that's sort of how I'm looking at possibly like the next big bet on what to do.
And for someone that's just listening to what you just said when they tune into this podcast, is your thesis more so to have an individual just start completely from scratch, or do you feel like there's some secret sauce in finding a business that's already launched and has maybe already clients, leads, like, because I know that's your bread and butter, right? Like buying and then selling the business versus
Sure.
starting.
Yeah. I mean, I think so, but you have to understand like this is a function of algorithms forcing you into something and just radical candor, right? It's like I have made very good money buying and selling things, made I mean, millions of bucks doing buy side advisory for acquisitions, right? But like I've
Mhm.
also the biggest win in my life was going from zero. I mean, that's unequivocally if you want to have a giant win in your life and you do not have money, the asymmetric
Mhm.
bet is starting from zero. Right? The problem
Right.
with buying things is you have to have money,
Right.
right? That's the big but if you have zero or 5 grand, I mean, you can buy something for I'm a huge fan of people buying a little micro size 5, 10, 15, 20,000 bucks and changing it. I think a lot of people will have the biggest hump for them is going from zero to one, right? And
Gotcha.
so
Yeah.
that's a huge, huge opportunity to skip that. Um, anything that, but yet it's hard to explain my framework of thinking here, but anything that I just told you you could do for a business as a service to launch from zero, you could do for a business that you buy as well,
Mhm.
right? It's just like what are the processes inside of this that we can implement? I would just urge everyone to go mess around with Claude and Manus and Claude Code and like, it's just the opportunity. It's just and it's fun. You start realizing you can just build shit. It's fun. And you'll start seeing how you can do that inside the context of either business that you work at, you start, or that you buy.
And for yourself, right, through the experience that you've had, is there something that's specific that's like one of those things that businesses always kind of sleep on, whether it's like the shopping cart, like following up with people or getting quality leads? Is there like a couple that you would say these are the ones that are consistent?
Yeah, the lowest hanging easy win fruit is almost always in email. It's almost always in retention, like
Okay.
without fail. Everyone spends all their time. It's sort of like fulfillment, right? Versus sales and marketing. I'm a marketer, right? So my gut is like, I want to chase the cool, fun shit, right? I want to make new creative. I want to run new ads. I want the dopamine hit, right? But like,
Right.
which means everyone's like this, right? Especially most entrepreneurs, we have like a tendency to have ADHD, to like sort of jump around, to be very dopamine addicted, right?
Yep.
So you end up with all these people who are not actually worrying about retention immensely. without fail, the most common opportunity I see is more emails, right? Is more email flows, better SMS flows, better retention, right? I mean, essentially everyone's worried about their CAC, right? Well, the CAC is actually irrelevant if you have a big enough LTV, right? And so people aren't worried about LTV as much, right? It costs much, much more fucking money and effort to
Mm-hmm.
acquire a new customer than it does to get the same customer to spend more money with you.
Right.
And so that's really where people miss out a lot. A lot of the consulting I've done and implementation I've done has been about like email flows,
Right.
right? It's like, especially with e-commerce brands, my God. And
Yeah.
then mostly founders, because they're all on their own, because there's so much emotional attachment to it. When
Yeah.
you build dropshipping is different. You're pretty unemotionally attached to dropshipping. When people build brands, I don't want to email too much. I don't want my customers are going to hate me. That's no one's fucking thinking about how much you email you more than you do. You know what I mean? It's just not true.
Right.
Like I know people doing $100 million a year that on Black Friday sent 5 fucking emails.
Holy
Right?
crap.
I think that the question you need to ask yourself is it more important to make money and be right, or is it more important to like have your ego massaged? And for each person, it's a different answer. But yeah, so I'd say the retention models, i.e., email, SMS, community building. Like, how do you suck? Not to sound like such a capitalist, but how do you suck more dollars out of a customer? Is like the easy lift to pick up. Better
Right.
monetization. That's a thesis even with like when we were doing content sites, right? It's like
Mhm.
different ad networks, right? E-commerce, it's better retention, better pricing normally is a big thing too. You find that their price elasticity is much more elastic than you think. People's ability to pay more is much more than you think. Like competing on price as a function is like a very, very shitty way to market. So like we bought this hearing aid brand. Like the biggest thing we did, yeah, we worked on some new funnels and new creative and stuff, but the biggest thing we did was like double the price,
Yeah.
right? And like it wasn't that like we were being predatory. We were actually just being competitive with the actual other people were selling the same products for.
Mhm.
And that doubling in price, if you want to be sort of altruistic with your capitalism here, the doubling in price allowed us to actually be profitable enough to scale these campaigns
Mhm.
massively, which allowed us to get more product that help people into their hands, right? Like, if you believe that you sell a good product, selling it so cheaply that you cannot afford to run your business is not an altruistic trait. That's just you being a fucking moron, right? You can actually get more product into people's hands that change their lives if you
Mhm.
make enough money to do so, right? This is the thesis of capitalism and pharma through capitalism, all that shit anyway, right? Like
Yeah.
we can go down that path longer, but I could go on that rant for a bit. I apologize.
No, all good. And to that point, right? Like I was watching that YouTube video you had on price elasticity and talking about the blue hearing
Yeah.
aids. And there was one thing that you said that kind of caught my attention and something that I've struggled with as well. With the blue hearing aids, right? Like someone's making a purchase one time, right? And it's
Oof.
like it's a one-time thing, right? And my situation right now with the personal finance bootcamp, it's a one-time purchase. So like is that something that you're analyzing now as a like for a business? It's like do you want something that's like subscription based or how do you actually make a shit ton of money with a business that sells a product one time to one individual? Just
You
talk.
become a fucking phenomenal direct response marketer, and I would never recommend anyone
Mhm.
runs a business that has a single hero SKU that never makes that makes the customer not return. So we can talk about it offline, but I'm positive that what you're selling has a ton of opportunity behind it. Just a personal finance bootcamp. There's plenty of other things that can be sold to these people, and in a
Right.
way that helps them, right? So we can talk about that if you're stuck. Happy to, but
Right.
I would highly, highly, highly a good if we're looking at e-commerce, for example,
Yeah.
you want to sell a product that solves a problem for sure. But in the solution of said problem, it should create a new problem for the customer.
Mhm.
And that new problem should be what you're selling in an OTO, an upsell, one time offer, right? An upsell. So, I sell a dog food dispenser. I'm making this up right now, right? My dog
Yeah.
wants to chomp on food. I can't feed him when I'm not home. I want to give him treats. Boom.
Mhm.
So I give him treats. It automatically dispenses him a treat every hour when he goes up to it to make him happy.
Mhm.
Well, what's the new problem? The new problem is I need treats for the dog food dispenser. So the upsell is treats,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's not even a great example, but do you see what I'm saying? Like there
Yeah.
should be like that's magic. That's how to increase an AOV very quickly. Is these
Mhm.
upsells should automatically you might sell a personal finance boot camp. I don't know what's inside of it, right? But let's say you're teaching people how to manage their money, obviously, right?
Mhm.
Well, maybe the new thing is like, well, now I need a uh, QuickBooks, right? I need some sort of way to actually do what you're implementing. Well, now that I've given you all these frameworks to follow and rules to follow, you need a way to
Yep.
automate it and make it happen.
Mhm.
The upsell for you right there would be very clearly do you see what I'm saying? Like the selling
I
your
got you.
product creates a new problem for the
I got
customer.
you. I
And
got you.
so I think that also with that, it said like, yeah, for I consult a beauty brand, they're crushing it. It's consumable, right? I mean,
Mhm.
e-commerce, what are the rules? Beauty and supplements, que magnifico. You want things that are demonstrable on social media. I want to be able to show a transformation. I want it to be consumable, so to come back and buy again.
Mhm.
I would love it to be a gross margin over 75 or 80%, so I can get first order profitable, which is very important if you're bootstrapped instead of venture
Mhm.
backed. Because again, you're competing in an auction. We're talking about Meta, for example.
Right.
You're competing in a ads auction, or even actually in organic TikTok, Instagram, anything.
Mhm.
You're competing in an auction there as well for attention, right?
Right.
But in general, like when you're competing against people that have better back end or venture capital, it doesn't matter which it is, if they've got a better LTV, more lifetime value for that customer because they sell them more products, they can be
Mhm.
unprofitable on acquisition. So they will win in that auction against you because they can pay more to acquire customers. There's a great Dan Kennedy quote, which is that he who can pay the most to acquire a customer wins. And it's pretty much true, you know?
Got it. And one thing I was going to ask you, let me see if I had it written down. Okay, so back to the point that I made about the blue hearing aids, that maybe it was like a one time big purchase. I had kind of the understanding that it's like, well, if it's like a one time big purchase, the idea is to maximize, I guess, sales to then sell that for like 2 to 3 times its value. Do you also go into businesses with the mindset of, okay, I want to build this up for a year or 2 years and flip?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, candidly, I don't think I've ever had like an actual framework to it. Ironically,
Yeah.
I mean, everyone asks me that. People are like, how many businesses, how many sites are you flipping in a year? Like, I don't fucking know. Like, I just been so. I mean, I just like approach life like a bull in a china shop. Do you see what I'm saying? And then I look back on it and I recognize what the
Yeah. Yeah.
patterns are, and that's how I started writing about it all. But yeah, I mean, you would want to wait at least a year because most of these businesses at this size, they're not hyper growth businesses. They're not tech businesses. They're valued at trailing 12 months EBITDA multiples or SDE, sellers discretionary earnings. So you're
Mhm.
going to want at least 6 to 12 months of your new revenue, of the new profits that you've created, right? Before you sell it. Because that's where you're really making the big upside in a small business like that is the EV value on the flip, right?
Okay.
So like I buy something for 300 grand. If I double the money it makes, at a 3x, it's probably only making 100 grand a year. Okay,
Right.
that's fine. So that means over the next year, maybe I double, maybe make 200 grand. But when I double that's revenue to 200 grand, profit 200 grand, and I go sell for 600 grand.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm making another 3 years of future value on the exit. Right. So you want to do at least 6 to 12 months of changes implemented before you go sell it again. I think that answers what you asked. Does it?
Yeah, no, it did, it did. And I guess to that point earlier that you said, right, about like, I guess figuring out what's working and stuff like that. Trends come and go. You said Twitter was kind of, cooked for a while. Now it seems that you're figuring something out here. In terms of ads, because I've heard you talk about it a lot on your YouTube channel, is
Yeah.
this something that still works for you in your businesses to this day?
Yeah, I mean, I've run very little ads right now. I consult on some brands that are running a lot of paid,
Yeah.
but I really believe that like it's really clicked for me recently that like people really discount how important it is to be good at organic.
Hmm.
Um, because it's free eyeballs, it's free top of funnel, and to be honest with you, the world has shifted in the type of terms of creative that works really well. Good creative that works feels organic, right?
Right.
And so like getting great at organic content, things that naturally go viral, things that naturally get shares, things that naturally convert, that'll be your best paid creative you can ever fucking run. Right.
Right.
So I would urge people to get good at organic. I mean, yeah, Meta's the best. Meta and Google are the best things that's happened to small businesses in all time for all time.
Yeah.
Right. I'm a huge fan of paid, but I really don't think like it's just a fucking grind, excuse my language, to like
All good.
go in and be like, I'm gonna be so good at run, dude. I'm not great at running cold traffic. I'm also a little bit removed, candidly, right? I'm 37, dude. I'm not, like I was like trying to make for a newsletter for me some ads for something the other day, and like I was in Canva and I like literally messaged someone on WhatsApp and work. And I was like, bro, I'm just like not at a place in my life where I'm spending 3 hours. I don't even mean to be cocky. I just like, it's just not a good use of my time, really.
Right.
You know what I
No,
mean?
for sure.
Like to conceptualize it and think about what's good and oversee it 100%. And I think it's
Yeah.
important to be able to get your hands dirty. But I was like getting so frustrated. Like, and that's just not my superpower. My superpower is not aesthetic creative. It's just not it. Right.
Mhm.
So like aligning shit and like reformat, it's just not me, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, I hope that answers that. Now, I've never been like the total paid monster. Like I know guys who are just like the trope is my boy Lucas said this on Twitter the other day, but like DR demons, right? Like is what you're calling it, right? Like I'm not that dude. Like there are dudes who can just. I was a big affiliate marketer as a kid, but it was a different world. Right? It was 20 years ago, right? The
Right.
landscape, apropos of what we spoke earlier, was so different.
Yeah.
But like today, dude, like I'm okay with paid. You know what I mean? Like I would absolutely layer paid on top of anything that we're doing. But like
Mhm.
that is the gasoline to the fire that organic creates, right? And that is really
Yeah.
what I believe from the way that I approach business. Just because there's like, it's just the under monetized opportunity still. Like it just like I did a post on Twitter yesterday. I mean, I'll open it right now real quick. But if I go to
Yeah.
like my analytics, I won't stay on it too long. But this monthly, I've done 5.4 million impressions on Twitter,
It's crazy.
right? Like that's pretty powerful, right? Like you know what I'm saying? Like that's I would have paid a lot for that from the demo that I'm hitting right now, right? Even at like a $10 CPM,
Right.
you know, like I would have spent $25,000-$30,000 on that, you know.
Yeah. No,
And I would bet my demo's higher quality than a $10 CPM.
for sure. And I think we touched up on this before we hit record, but you're talking about that Lego post that you were talking about Pokemon, that you could buy that, flip it later for like 10 years.
Yeah.
What's your kind of a thought process in finding things that are going to be absolute bangers on X?
So this is what I'm trying to quantify. If I could quantify it better, I would have the most successful content marketing agency in the world. To be really candid with you, right? Like, but I do think that anyone can get decent at it. The
Yeah.
problem, I was actually talking to a friend about this last night. Apropos of me trying to figure out where I want to really dive. I'm like considering buying. I don't want to say what it is, but there's some guys I know that are buying like a big old 4-letter domain and website right now that it's like doing 1.85 in EBITDA a year. Like I may partner with them on it, or do I want to go build an agency from scratch? Who I don't know, right? I'm sort of exploring a couple of things, right?
Yeah.
But part of this conversation last night was like, how do I quantify what I'm good at and take people? So I don't think I could do this for like $3,000 or $5,000 a month with 30 clients, which is the only 40 clients. The only way it'd be useful to me, because for
Right.
me to really recognize that stuff, I'm just entrenched in our corner of the internet, dude. Like I just understand, like subconsciously, I'm trying to quantify it better. Like, what are the patterns that like people in our corner of the world that see the world through a similar lens than you and I, maybe we don't see the exact same, but clearly similar lenses,
Mhm.
find interesting? And then how do we tie that into me, who is this generalist who like builds businesses and sells them and like helps brands grow? So I think it's about recognizing over time, spending enough time entrenched in a culture to recognize what they find interesting. I mean, I could tell you very specific things like hooks starting with numbers are really powerful, right? People love a number. You want a very strong, direct, contrarian take, right? Like the Lego shit works, the Lego Pokemon shit works because there's a collectibles world already. Like you're deeply diving into a very entrenched space of people that are super passionate about what they do. It's
Mhm.
also super controversial. I can't tell how many people told me to kill myself over the past 24 hours, right? Because they're like collectors, right? They're like people that like love Pokemon, and they think scalpers are monsters. They think that, you know what I mean? Like it's destroying this industry. By the way, the Pokemon set I said people could buy and hold for 10 years is $650, limited one per person per order. It's 6,700 pieces. It's not meant for kids, bro. It's Lego already capitalizing on millennial nostalgia, right? It's not meant.
100%.
I'm not stealing a Lego set from an 8-year-old, bro. You know what I mean? You know what I'm trying to say? Like,
Right.
you know, it says
1000%.
18 plus on the box. It's not meant for children, right? Like it is
Right.
capitalism at its core. And
Right.
we can get into a different conversation about sort of scalping and how that can destroy things, of course. But my point is to say it's like mechanics, yeah, you want to with Twitter, for example, with TikTok, with Instagram, really bold, strong hooks. The hook is 90% of it. Hook and
Yeah.
then retention. You want people to feel like they're having an epiphany that they want to share with people. They want to feel like an expert by sharing it as well, right? That's a
Yeah.
big piece of it.
Yeah.
You want to create controversy. I mean, we can talk about, again, more logistical. Like I said that they used to be able to buy a Millennium Falcon for 400 on the, I did an Instagram on this last night.
Yeah.
Actually, TikTok marked it as like promotional, so throttled it. But Instagram, it's like 100,000 views already or something,
Nice.
about the same thing. And it's like everyone in the comments like, well, actually, it was 499. You know what I mean? It's like you can like misspeak on purpose to get people to
Right.
comment. You know what I mean? Yeah, rage bait a little bit. You have to be
Yeah.
careful though, because you don't want to, you know. So
Right.
those are some of the mechanic stuff. But like, what's really important is the bit more intangible, which is like understanding how the culture speaks that you're a part of. Like, if we
Mhm.
were talking about compliance software, I would have to speak completely differently. I would have to entrench myself. The reason that's why I don't have a content agency. I could only have a content agency if I had like 4 clients that paid me $25,000 a month each,
Right.
right? Because I would have to spend 2 hours a day,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? Like really, really, really working on their content. And it could probably translate into millions of dollars a year for them.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know if that makes sense. Like you have to understand the culture of your subculture
Yeah.
and what hits for them. And then you can apply the mechanics of like what's trending currently, what's a good hook, how do I get someone to stop the scroll? On Twitter, if you're going longer form, a big thing I work on, I think a lot of people don't think about is like you can write long form, but the 280 character limit. So I always try and rehook you before the 280 character limit so you want to read more.
Right.
Right? That's like a big, I don't see anyone talking about that. Actually never mention that to people. That's a big thing I do. So you
Mhm.
have an initial hook that makes you stop the scroll, but then before they hit the read more section, you should make them want to open that read more section, right? You
Gotcha.
want to be rehooking and repaying off. Hopefully that makes some sense.
No, it does. It does. And I guess like to kind of wrap things up, James. So all the content that you do on the letter and nano flips and Twitter and Instagram, does this all pretty much funnel to offmarket.so, or is there something else? Like, is that the
No, dude, you're great at fucking research. You have like done the deep dive, dude. That's so funny. There's nothing else, man. I mean,
yeah,
like, I mean, you've just caught me at a very interesting moment in my life, which is, I hate to say it at 37, probably a midlife crisis, right? Which is like what I really, I had the quarter life crisis. At
yeah,
27, I stopped being a club runner and moved to Southeast Asia, and like started. I came back and I built a financial media business, right? Like
yeah,
that was the quarter life crisis. I'm going through a sort of midlife crisis that I think is happening also because of this renaissance that we're going through right now with AI in the modern world. And I do believe that like the original Renaissance, Da Vinci was not a painter. He was a painter, a sculptor, an inventor. He was everything. And that is
mhm,
what we're going through today. You can be everything, right? The generalist win, the polymath wins. And that's clicking for me. And I want to build something over the next decade. But so to answer it all, like, no, the ecosystem all ties together, but the hub was always nanoflips, right? It was always
mhm,
nanoflips.com. So if you want to hear me talk about buying and selling small internet businesses, I will always talk about it on nanoflips.com. From that, customers got sent to off markets, customers got sent to our workshops, customers got sent to one-on-one consulting with me, right? And that was that hub there. And now I've got james.camp, which is just my personal website. And just because I want to start figuring out what it is next. And I don't want to be so, part of the problem I ran into with nanoflips is being so interested in so many things, as you can
mhm,
probably tell from us chatting for 40 minutes,
yeah,
it becomes very tough to be so siloed into only talking about buying and selling small internet businesses. What if I want to
right,
grow beyond that? What if I want to work on $500 million transactions? Well, that doesn't really work for when I'm telling you that you can buy a SaaS for 80 grand, or an e-commerce business for
yeah,
200. So that will exist and it will continue to exist because it's changed my life astronomically, and buying and selling small businesses and working in that space has changed my life drastically. But I will either buy something much bigger
yeah,
or I will go build something from scratch again. And hopefully I'll find an operator to run nanoflips for me with me. But like a lot of the home that I built like literally 3 days ago or 4 days ago is james.camp. It's just, that's my personal website, and I'll write the newsletter there. I think I'm going to call it, like a modern renaissance, and just yap about all this nonsense we yapped about today. And if you
yeah.
want to talk about buying and selling small internet businesses, you'll be on off market, you'll be on nanoflips, and everything else will go there. So we'll see though.
Well, let's go, dude. Dude, I just wanted to ask you one more thing because you mentioned
Please.
something pretty profound, right? Like you talked about how you've been kind of a renaissance and trying out a bunch of different things. And myself, like I always feel like I've been like this as well, just always trying new shit. And there's kind of two camps. One that, and I think majority are in camp A, where they're just like focused on one specific niche, versus camp B is like, kind of do what your mind wants and kind of like figure out your journey as you go. Like, what's your take on being hyper specific on one niche versus kind of just
I spent 3 hours writing something this morning specifically about that. If you give me a second, I'll read you a couple quotes from it. I'm going to post it
100%.
today. I would love you to I'll send it to you after this also. Like,
100%.
because
100%.
it's really, 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 for me, like a really personal, hold on, let me see if I can pull it up. I'm just going to read you the beginning of it. You know, I
100%.
spent years telling you that you were broken, that your brain was wired wrong, that you just couldn't focus. I'll never forget being 8 years old in a doctor's office, my parents holding me down, forcing Ritalin into my mouth because the world said I needed to be fixed. I'm here to tell you that that diagnosis is obsolete. That thing they tried to medicate out of you is now your greatest competitive advantage in the new world we're living in. So I hope that sort of leads you into where I think this is going, right? I do think that, like, you know, that this is changing, you know, like this is the ADD generalist polymath that I am, that you are, because internet democratizes information. AI democratizes the use cases of said information. That you can be that person. You can take a shotgun approach, try 50 things, and then find the thing that interests you that you dive into and be a sniper on that for a bit. And then you can pivot every 3 to 6 months. And if you don't, you will fucking lose because the world moves so fast today. And I think that it is our time, right? Like, it took me a long time to be successful, so to speak, because the world was not built for that. And I think that for many people, the world is built for that now, right? So, of course, specialists are great, but I can know everything a specialist knows today, could have for years, but I never knew how to apply it. In the next 2 years with AI, I'll be able to apply whatever any specialist can apply. The question will be who has taste and who has distribution, who understands that from 10,000 feet up, how the puzzle pieces should go together that fit within the culture that you're looking at, not just how to make a puzzle piece. Does that make sense?
That makes freaking a lot of sense, dude. James, man, this was an epic, epic conversation, man. I just want to thank you for your time today. It really means a lot. I know people are going to gain value from this. Where can people find you? What's your best place? Is it james.camp?
Yeah, so james.camp, that's because I bought jamescamp.com years ago and they never transferred it to me. And the person, and so that's the whole thing. But james.camp
James.camp.
is my personal website / newsletter if you want to sign up directly for the newsletter, but james.camp. And then my Twitter is where I spend most of the time, and that's at Jameson Camp or James on Camp. I'm same thing on TikTok, but I'm hardly there. Instagram, it's the James Camp. I probably should put it all under one, but Twitter's the easiest place to find me yapping.
All right, perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, James Camp. Thank you guys.
Cheers, man. Thank you.
Cheers.